Star Wars Young Jedi Knights Darkest Night Chapter 13 The screaming sounds of the TIE fighters rippling through the atmosphere sent a chill of primal terror down Jason's spine. He knew the hull was only exhaust from the powerful engines, but he felt certain Imperial ship designers must have delighted at the hellish noise. In the bustling fabrication facility, a cacophony of alarms sprang up from the platform loudspeakers. Growling, barking announcements hammered through the air. The Wookiee workers ran in all directions, activating security systems or evacuating the area. TIE bombers shrieked low over the treetops, dropping proton explosives that sent the dense network of branches aflame. Dark gray smoke billowed from burning leaves. "We must help defend against this threat," Talcott said, looking for some weapon substantial enough to use against the invading fighters. Her face wore an expression of stony determination. Sierra and Loie howled in rage at seeing the destruction of the tree domes. The spindly tour droid spun his boxy head around, despite its numerous optical sensors. "Do not panic. I have no fear," it said in its tiny voice. "This must be a drill. No attack has been scheduled for today." At Loie's waist, the MTD piped up in a scornful tone. "Why, you silly tour droid? Switch on your optical sensors. Can't you see this is a crisis situation?" The miniaturized droid sputtered a depreciating comment about the questionable intelligence of public relations models. The tour droid continued to issue calming messages. Those thoughts were obviously scrambled. "Kashyyyk has numerous defensive satellites. No enemy ships can approach this facility. We have sophisticated defense mechanisms, including powerful perimeter guns. They should begin firing any moment now." "Perimeter guns?" Talcott said, her gray eyes flashing. "Where? Perhaps we can use them against the enemies." Sierra roared, gesturing with her long, hairy arms to show that she knew the way. "A splendid idea," the MTD said. "I hope we don't get blown to bits before we can implement Mr. Tenelka's plan. Oh my!" "As my sister would say," Jason said, "what are we waiting for?" He, Tenelka, and the two young Wookiees barged past the tour droid into the complex. Sierra led them down an open corridor amid the din of explosions and laser blasts. They reached the network of pulley-driven vines, a rope-like lifts that yanked them to the highest level. Sierra grabbed one vine, tucked her foot into a loop, and the rope sprang upward, drawing her to the higher platforms. Loie did the same. Jason followed suit. Looking down to watch Tenelka, he wrapped her arm around the vine and stepped into a loop with no problem whatsoever. Within seconds, they were all whisked to an upper platform at the outer perimeter of the complex. Because of their quick reaction, the companions reached the defensive guns just before most of the Wookiee defenders. Jason saw an unattended ion cannons with spherical power sources and needle-like barrels aimed toward the sky. His eyes lit up on a pair of old quad laser cannons, exactly like those in the Millennium Falcon's gun walls. "Hey, we can use those," Jason said. He raced over to the nearest encampment, checking the status panels. "They're powered up and ready to go." Tenelka gruffly agreed and stationed herself behind one of the other two weapons. The two Wookiees chattered with each other, aimed to be called. Master Jason, Master Lubaka, and Mr. Sierra have decided to use the computers to determine where the breakdown of the facility's defensive systems occurred. Perhaps they can prevent future Imperial fighters from getting through. Oh, I do hope they succeed." "They'll do their best," Jason said, grabbing the quad laser's targeting controls. He sank down in the voluminous seat in front of the cannon, feeling the energy hum through the firing sticks in his fingers. Since the widely spread controls are designed for large Wookiee bodies, he adjusted the targeting circle. The Imperial fighters continued to howl overhead, launching strikes against the Wookiee residential districts, but leaving the central computer facilities relatively untouched, though thrown into complete chaos. A glance at Jason's left told him that Tenelka was in position. Grasping the firing stick with her right hand, she seemed already familiarized with the weapon control systems. In her eyes began to track the enemy fighters overhead. Three tall Wookiees charged on the defensive platform or took up positions at the ion cannons, glancing curiously at the two humans, confused by this unexpected assistance. But they didn't waste time asking for explanations. Instead, they fired powerful blasts from the ion cannons. One of the crackling yellow-white shots caught a TIE fighter that soared through the edge of the blast. The Imperial control systems flickered out and the TIE fighter spun dead in the air with engine silence. Unable to regain control, the pilot crashed into the distant forest canopy with a dull, booming explosion. Jason used his targeting circles to lock onto a sluggish, fully loaded TIE bomber that arrowed toward the clustered residential structures. The bomber came in, picking up speed while preparing to drop its deadly explosives. Jason grasped the firing controls and gritted his teeth. Come on, he said. Finally, the target blinked as the TIE bomber settled directly in the crosshairs of the gun. He squeezed both controls, launching searing blazes of laser energy from all four cannons. The beams targeted on the bomber just before it could drop its proton explosives. Instead of destroying the homes of hundreds of Wookiees, the bomber became a brilliant ball of fire and smoke. The belch of detonations grew louder as the TIE fighter's own proton bombs fed into the eruption. Got one, Jason crowed. Tenel Ka fired repeatedly until another pair of TIE fighters exploded in the air. 2 more, she said. By now, additional Wookiee defenders had arrived to assume positions on the remaining guns. Jason fired again and again, rotating his chair to aim at the rapidly moving targets. He blasted another TIE fighter out of the sky. Just like our practice runs in the Millennium Falcon, he said. Only this time, hitting targets is a lot more important than winning a contest with my sister. This is a fact, Tenel Ka said. Another wing of TIE fighters swooped down, and Jason shot wildly. So many Imperial targets, he thought, all of them bristling with lethal weaponry. His quad laser cannon spat beams of energy, but they all missed the fighters, spun evasive loops in the air. Oh, blaster bolts, Jason said. Wookiees kept appearing, leaping off vine pulley lifts and rushing to their positions. Although there were more defenders than guns, Loey and Sierra hurried over to Jason Tenel Ka, speaking loudly. Their grunts and growls overlapped so that EMTD had difficulty translating both. One at a time, please, the little droid said. All right, I believe I understand the basics of what you're saying, Master Lobaka. And Master Sierra determined that a single-point defensive failure occurred at the traffic control towers for this facility. Somehow, all of the central command systems have been compromised. It appears the attack is being guided from there. Loey roared a suggestion. Oh dear, EMTD said. Master Lobaka suggests we would be well advised to go to the part of the problem and leave these well-trained Wookiee gunners to continue the fight here. While I agree that it might be safer to move inside, I am skeptical about the wisdom of rushing to greater danger. Good idea, Loey, Jason said, ignoring EMT's warnings. He fired the quad laser one more time, almost offhandedly. He was astonished to see his quick shot destroy the side panel of another TIE fighter, which spun out of control and crashed into the treetops. Hey, I got another one, he said. Barricaded in a traffic control tower, Zeke listened to outraged Wookiees pounding against the sealed door. A sizzling, metal sound worked its way through the background din as the Wookiees used high-powered, intensity laser torches to slice through the armored metal. Their own well-constructed defensive worked well against them, since they had intended Kashyyyk's command center to be impregnable. Slowly but surely, though, the Wookiees made headway, slicing through the door 1 centimeter at a time. Using the security monitor, Zeke watched the hairy creatures out in the hall. With bestial rage, one of them picked up a metal pipe and hammered at the door with no effect. Of course, because of the thick plating. But the Wookiee seemed satisfied just being able to vent his fury. Timothy Kai crossed her arms over her reptile-armored chest. The noise level out there is most annoying, she said, then glared at the stormtrooper standing guard. Her violet eyes flashed with a twisted idea. Why don't we trigger the locking mechanism and let the Wookiees stumble inside? We can easily take care of them, the whole lot, before they recover from their surprise. Vonda Rod chuckled. That would be amusing to watch. Before Zeke could offer an indignant protest that he was in command of this mission, the stormtrooper activated the door controls. The panel suddenly slid aside, shocking the Wookiee engineers who had been working to gain access. They howled. The stormtrooper used his blaster rifle to mow them down in a few seconds. Every one of them. Even encased in white armor, the stormtrooper's body language showed his pleasure. He keyed the sequence to slam the heavy door shut again, leaving the fallen Wookiees out in the corridor. At last, peace and quiet, Timothy Kai said. Overhead, the TIE fighters and bombers continued to attack, dodging bursts of weapon fire from the tree facility's perimeter defenses. The reinforced dome overhead showed the battle in the skies. Several contingent stormtrooper reinforcements had already landed. Vonda Ra worked one of the computer stations scanning security images. A minute later, she gave a gasp of surprise and triumph. I believe I found them, she said. The vermin were firing the perimeter guns, but now they're in the corridors. They seem to be making their way. They're making their way here. Delusions of grandeur. That could prove quite convenient. Who? Zeke said. Vonda Ra raised her eyebrows. Why, those Jedi brats, of course. Had you forgotten your other goal for this mission? Zeke thought of Jason and Tenel Ka and Jaina and their other friends. No, I didn't forget. But he didn't want to confront the frontier, not in front of the evil Timothy Kai. This would have been his own private battle, the consequences of the choices he made. Meet them on the way, ambush them, lock down their location. Simple enough, Vonda Ra said. Reinforcing his position of command, Zeke turned sharply and issued first orders. Timothy Kai, you will remain here and continue organizing the mission. Our primary goal is to get those computer systems for the Second Imperium. You, he nodded towards Stormtrooper, will stay here as a guard. Bandara and I will take care of the young Jedi Knight. Timothy Kai scowled at being ordered up. Zeke rounded on her, his cape swirling. Is that assignment beyond your capabilities, Timothy Kai? Indeed not, she said. Is yours? Just be certain you eliminate those brats. When the Stormtrooper unsealed the armored door again, Vandara followed Zeke, and they strode out into the corridor, stepping between motionless Wookiee engineers sprawled on the floor, heading towards a confrontation with Zeke's former friend. Jason rushed along, soldiers shouldered with Loie and Sierra. The interior corridors were full of smoke, debris, and noise. Glow panels on the ceilings flickered off and on with energy fluctuations from the attack. Jason and Loie drew their shimmering lightsabers and held them ready. Tenelka picked up a loose metal rod, a piece of destroyed pipe that had fallen from an overhead assembly, and lopped along behind them, guarding the rear. She held the rod like a spear, as if hoping to find some enemy targets. Loie and Sierra turned the corner in the corridor, and Jason thought he recognized the route they had taken to the monolithic control tower during their visit from the tour with the tour droid. Suddenly, Loie gave a surprised roar. Sierra bellowed in alarm. Tenelka brandished her long metal rod. Hey, it's Zeke, Jason shouted, just getting to a stop. There in the corridors, as if waiting for them, stood the dark-haired scamp who had for years been a friend to Jason and Jaina, who had taken them on excursions through Coruscant's abandoned buildings and dim valleys. Now the once scruffy boy wore expensive leather armor and a crimson black cape, and wore a scarlet-bladed lightsaber. He looked ominous.
He's a black person!
Yeah. Tenelka saw Zeke too, and her metal staff at the ready. In a flash of memory, Jason thought the warrior girl's initial meeting with Zeke back on Coruscant, when the young man had dropped down from above to surprise them. Tenelka had whipped out her fiber cord with blurring speed and lassoed him before he could jump out of the way. Though now Tenelka had only one hand and did not choose to drop her long steel rod and grab for her rope or her lightsaber. For a moment, Zeke's face seemed open. His eyes grew round and uncertain. Zeke! Jason, he said, Tenelka glared at the Night Sister and spoke in a low, threatening voice. I have your name, Bandara. I saw you try to lure others from the Singing Mountain clan on Dathomir. In your encampment at the Great Canyon, you chose me as a trainee for the Shadow Academy. Instead, we rescued my friends and defeated you utterly. We'll defeat you again. The muscular Night Sister held up her claw-like hands. Not this time, Jedi brats, she said. I shall enjoy destroying you. Jason felt her dark power crackle through the air, and he held his lightsaber high in defense. Fire-blue lightning bolts danced around Vandara's fingertips, burning through her body and sizzling behind her eyes. She flicked her wrist to hurl her dark lightning at them, but Zeke shouldered the Night Sister to one side. The bolts of evil flared past them like shadowy flames and scorched the wall plates. Vandara glared at Zeke, but he snapped. They are mine to deal with. I am in command here. With a thundering sound of booted feet, a contingent of Imperial fighters charged down the corridor. Jason looked up in alarm. Reinforcements had arrived, far more than he could hope to fight with his lightsaber, even with the help of Lobaka, Sierra, and Tenelka. Stormtroopers must have landed on the upper platform, Jason surmised. The Second Imperium already wanted something here at the fabrication facility. Judging from the alarms and explosions, the Imperials had already overrun most of the platforms. Zeke stood waiting to battle the Jedi trainees, as if gathering his courage and his anger, while the rebuffed Night Sister seethed dark fury. The Stormtroopers drew their weapons. Jason knew with a sudden certainty that they could never win a face-to-face fight here. Tenelka pushed herself one step forward, brandishing her metal rod. We must turn back, she said, darting to look at him over her shoulder. Good idea, Jason said, casting a glance from behind him. You, girl, are a traitor to Dathomir, Vandara spat, just as Tenelka hurled the long pipe in her direction. The rod struck the Night Sister, knocking her sideways. Stormtroopers clattered down toward them as Loie and Sierra turned to charge down the corridor. After them, Zeke called, gesturing with one black-gloved hand. The Stormtroopers thundered in pursuit. Vandara cast the pipe aside. Patches of it were bent and red-hot where fire from her fingers had superheated the metal. Sierra yelled something to her brother as they sprinted down the corridor with Jason and Tenelka right behind them. Access hatch? EMT translate? Escape? Yes, that sounds like an excellent idea. By all means, let us escape. At an intersection of corridors, Sierra stopped beside a clearly marked metal floor panel. Reaching her long fingers down, she hooked the tiny ring handles. With her powerful muscles, she hauled upward, pulling the heavy latch free to reveal a trap door. She growled and gestured. Without hesitation, Loey leapt into the hole, catching a strong vine that hung underneath. The tiny voice of the translating droid wailed. But this leads to the underlevels of the forest, Master Labaka. We can't go down there. It's far too dangerous. Loey merely grumbled and continued his descent. Tenel Ka followed next, hopping lightly over the edge, wrapping her muscular legs around a vine. Grasping with her hands, she lowered herself into the darkness. Jason turned around just in time to see Zeke and Vonda Ra rushing towards them, flanked by stormtroopers. Down to the underworlds, huh? Jason said, glancing at Sirika. Looks like you've got an early chance to complete that risky adventure of yours. Sira growled her agreement. With that, both of them plunged over the ripped trapdoor and descended into the dark, murky depths below. Scrambling downward into the tangled foliage, Jason looked up from the dense branches to see the silhouetted figures of Zeke and Vonda Ra conferring at the edge of the glowing patch of light. Jason could hear their voices faintly as he fled deeper into the thick forest. We have to follow them, Zeke said. You should have allowed me to destroy them when I had the chance, the Night Sister snapped. Now they will cause difficulties. Zeke answered sharply. I'm in charge here. We'll do things my way. He turned and shouted to the stormtroopers. Down to the forests. All of you. Zeke, Vonda Ra, and the stormtroopers plunged after their prey into the underworld of Kashyyyk.